I'm excited. All right. So, welcome back to the Veterans Club podcast. I'm your host, LJ Haywood. Today, we are talking about the power of silent confidence with our distinguished guest, Charles Living, an expert in resume development, networking, and professional development. What you will learn today, we're going to be talking about unlocking the secrets of nonverbal communication and enhancing your professional image, mastering practical techniques for turning silent cues into interview success. And you'll also gain some, we'll also focus on some exclusive insights tailored to the needs of our veteran community as it relates to getting hired and things of that nature. So whether or not you are a professional, transitioning veteran, or somebody looking to elevate your communication skills, this episode's got you. And we will get started right after this.
All right, welcome. Good morning, my fellow Veterans Club community. I am Jeff Rosales, the founder here of the Veterans Club. Really excited to talk about this topic of silent confidence. Many of you know, veterans are known for being those silent, quiet professionals. And that has served us so well and will continue to serve us so well as we progress throughout our careers, right? So I'm so excited to have Charles here, who's a great advocate, who's actually been a supporter of the Veterans Club since day one. And the fact that we brought him on the show says a lot about the people that are resonating with this, because the whole point is to give you a voice, my fellow veterans. So thank you so much. LJ, take it away.
Yeah, before we get started, I actually wanted to do a quick table talk with everybody here. And I wanted, because the title of this episode is Silent Confidence. So I wanted to go around the table and I wanted to ask you guys, so when you hear the term silent confidence, like what does that mean to you? Because for me, it means you're not trying to show off. You just you step into a room and people know that you've got it together. Let's start with Elisa. I don't know. I want to hear her perspective first.
Oh, that's so mean, picking me first. I guess I think it means maybe being humble and looking like you're sure of yourself, like you know where you are, what you're doing, and people can sense that.
All right, you got to pick the next person. We'll go popcorn style this.
Okay, Chris Delore.
Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Okay, so for me, silent confidence is the light and the energy that arrives through the doorway before you do. It's a dedicated purpose and direction that is unstoppable and unshakable and unbreakable. So knowing who you are to the core, knowing your core values, your purpose, your direction, and not really caring about other people's opinions and letting them sway you.
All right, who's next? Chris Delore.
Let's see. Kingsley.
Do it. I say, yeah, she gonna call me because she was looking. She's like, should I call him? Should I call him? So silent confidence, I say, is the what you tell yourself. I heard this numerous times, and is the I am, right? That's what you have to look at yourself and tell yourself that in the morning before you even walk out that door. I'm gonna get this job. I'm gonna go crush it. I'm going to be the best thing since sliced bread, since they even knew sliced bread was a thing. I am. Because when you start off with that, the I am on the positive side, that's where that silent confidence come to play. The negative side, like, I am tired. Guess what? Your brain is going to start thinking that you're tired, right? Like, no, I'm awake. I'm ready to get it in. So just have those two words, that I am with that plus after it, that silent confidence. And I got to go to my man Jay Easy, Joe Beasy, my man Joe.
I think the silent confidence is it's just that sense of peace that you have, that you know that there's no question about the environment that you've kind of created with people that are in your circle. I'm trying to do this really broad because I don't want to just make it about work or one specific thing, but it's just that air of, you just know that you've established a circle that trusts you, right? So they kind of give you that, I don't know, they give you that piece that you can ask them to do something in a way that's direct, and they'll know, okay, if there was an opportunity, he would explain why we have to do this. But if there's not, then he's just going to be direct. In other words, you know what I mean? Like, that's, you just have that confidence that you can just kind of be you, and those around you are going to just kind of go, okay, that makes sense. Does that, if that makes any, that makes sense. Yeah, you guys get it. That's that confidence I have. You guys get what I'm saying. Now I'm going to go over to Cynthia.
Thanks, Joe. Mine, I always think it's in the posture. If you're slouching and you're looking down, people aren't going to take you as being serious. But if you roll your shoulders back and you're meeting everyone directly in the eye, you're commanding that attention. You're saying, "Hey, I'm worthy, and you better pay attention." That's all I got.
Let's go, Jeff. Take us home, brother.
I love it, man. I mean, I'm not silent at all, but I will say that what I love about it is actions speak louder than words. And that is silent confidence to me. When someone can take in a humble way and execute on a plan. That is silent confidence to me.
And that's well said. And by the way, for the listeners here live, drop a comment. Let us know what you think silent confidence means. And we're going to crack right into this conversation with our boy Chuck. Listen, brother, I was excited to have you reach out to be part of the show because, like Jeff said, when we started this project, I mean, we're putting this show on, so we see that you were definitely engaged with the content that we're putting out there, and then the fact that you've been helping so many veterans. Before the show, you were kind of giving a little bit about your background. Do you mind kind of sharing with the audience a bit about some of the things you were sharing with our team before we went live here?
Sure, not at all. My background is in communication. I've been trained as a communication scholar. I would say that started back when I was an adolescent and just being raised by a bunch of NCOs and a couple of field grade officers fresh back from Vietnam. So they set the standard, and I've always gravitated toward them, either in working for them or being hired by them or hiring them myself. Because of the silent confidence that they bring and the value added that they bring to any equation or any team that they're on, because they understand teamwork, they understand self-preparation, they understand practice, and they bring those values and moral codes, that warrior ethos, if you will. I don't want to get too deep into that because I've never served, just being fully transparent. I've never served in the military, but I've tried to work alongside them, work with them, and promote them in every way that I can, because they do bring that value added of teamness. Just listening to the folks talking just a few moments ago, you heard some really great things, that humbleness, the energy and dedication that they bring, their core values themselves. I just think that's always going to be marketable. Not from the standpoint of just selling, but from the standpoint of, hey, I've got somebody I have confidence in. I know they're going to do the right thing even when nobody's watching, and they're going to build other team members around them so that the team is taken care of. When you take care of the little things, the big things tend to take care of themselves. And so I've always enjoyed that about being around veterans and being with them, and that sharing in that tribe of warriors about what they bring to any situation that they get engaged with. So my background has been helping over 3,500 get jobs and gainful civilian employment in excess of $100 million. And so now I've moved into another area where I'm coaching human resources and company leaderships about the value of veterans, but also how to do team building themselves and leveraging their teams into more practical and profitable means.
So I want to dive into one of the things that, because when you and I connected to kind of plan for this show, one thing that kept coming up was nonverbal communication, right?
Right.
And so let's talk about why is understanding nonverbal communication so important. And because we're trying to frame this, because like Joe said earlier, a lot of these topics are very like they can go in different areas, right? But
Absolutely.
just for the just to frame it in the context of like employment or working in a business perspective, because some people that are out there may not be even looking to be in a job. They might just be a business owner, right? So this is still going to help them as well. But just to frame it, why is it so important to say in an interview, for example, to pay attention?
Well, let me roll it back. Let's get really basic from the standpoint of fundamentally it's biology that's going on there. And I'm going to put in a plug for a text that I'm really into right now by Greeny and his team called Crucial Conversations. It's in its 3rd edition now. I wish I had seen it 30 years ago. But they break it down very well in the sense that back in our lizard brain, we have 3 fundamental responses to any situation. And the first one is flight. We run away so that we can outdistance the predator. The second one is freeze, because a lot of predators really only see movement. And then the third is to fight. And of course, we do that as a general rule only when we're cornered or we believe that there's self-esteem or something's being attacked in some particular way. And then the fourth response, interestingly enough, is to make friends. So one of the key things to understand there in terms of any interaction is that most people are looking for all information, any clues, any keys that they can get to let them know which of those 4 actions that they want to make. And we do it in less than 3 seconds as a general rule. So before we ever open our mouths, people are looking at us and they're evaluating. And so I have to be very careful about my solar panel here that it's not too shiny or distracting people about what's going on. My attire, I want it to be professional in most every situation, even though today is a lazy Saturday and we're in here trying to work on some personal development, professional development, whichever way you want to call it. We need to be able to project a professional, credible image about whatever it is that we're doing. And so we get very concerned about how that posture is. We were talking earlier, if I remember right, it was Kinsley was talking about this I am, having that positive mental attitude going into the situation. From your military experience, that you want to go in as a warrior, and standing tall and projecting strength. Well, we want to do the same thing in our relationships in a lot of cases. But first, we want to project that we're friendly. So one of the first things that we do in the universal sign of friendliness is a smile, that you go in the room smiling, you're glad to see people, you're actually engaging with people, that you're there. That was the other one that, let's see, I want to say Crystal pointed out that you go with a dedicated purpose. You're going there to make friends, to share information, to collaborate and partner with people about moving forward and bringing this team together and bringing this team across the goal line, whatever that goal line might be. And
since you brought them up, I brought them back up too. Because,
there you go. Cool. So
when you talk about smiling, because we actually have an episode, we're going to talk to Alfredo. I have a joke for. I'm going to say that for the episode because my girl was joking with his name. But you talk about smiling. These 2 individuals have the brightest smiles that I've ever seen. And you know what? It was funny that you mentioned that, because I was actually thinking about that when I first got into selling insurance. When I was this is like years ago, I had a little sticky note on my Zoom that said smile, because when you get out the military, you're taught. I was a very I don't know, just enthusiastic person, and I felt like that didn't really help in basic training. I'll be honest. They're like, hey, well, you just can't get right. I was known as I was that can't get right dude in basic that just gravitated attention, right? And so I stopped smiling. I didn't smile as often, and I noticed that does affect when you meet new people. They call it rest and be face, right? Like I had that going on for quite a while, and I wanted to hear from Kings or Crystal Laura about the value of that smile and projecting that.
Get Casey, you first, ladies first. Let you go first, ma'am.
All right. So I will say your smile, just like your energy, is contagious, right? And so recognizing your own body language and looking in the mirror, and just like I know, Charlie, you had mentioned, going across the goal line. I'm a former NFL cheerleader, and as a speaker and a coach and a mentor, we have to watch ourselves. So play back your tapes, just like the football players do, just like the professional athletes do. Take a look in the mirror, maybe shoot a video, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Share your message in front of a video and watch yourself back. And, try not to get in your head so much, but I think a smile can go a long way. Recognize where you have dips in your energy, in your breathing. And so that way you can work on the confidence and the speaking and the pace and the rhythm, and most importantly, being open and, being genuine. So not just like smile just to fake it, right? But just, I think it's it's contagious. So the more you know about yourself and the more confident, the more you reflect, and just no one's perfect, right? So I love to watch my tapes back just so that I can not pick myself apart, but just know where I can make small tweaks. Thank you for letting me share. Kingsley, over to
No,
you.
well said. Well said.
stuff.
I know you're in fitness, and I want to kick it to Ken. Sorry, brother. But before the show, I usually will go for a quick walk, or I'll try and work out before the show. And it definitely does boost my energy, to your point, because people can tell when you're faking the funk. I'm one of those people who wears my heart on my sleeve. And so, like, if I'm at work and I'm having a bad day or something's not going well, it's very difficult for me personally to pretend like I'm in a good mood. But so, like, we're not saying like go to work and just smile through the pain every time, but like sometimes it's important. Like, one thing I do, I like, hey, look, I'm having a rough day, so it's not you, it's me. Because sometimes people will think that you're upset with them, right? Because things are going on with you. So I think communicating that is really, really valuable, especially for me, because I work with a bunch of young people, and like she said, energy is it transfers. And so I had to let my team know, hey guys, look, I'm having a rough day. I'm really gonna lean on you guys to really take charge here. And I'm not upset with you. I'm just going through some shit, and that's where I think communication is really, really key. Go ahead, Kings. Take it away, brother.
Man, so I'm glad I let Casey go first, because I was trying to see how can I formulate it, and she brought up a great point. Now in I call it our post-COVID era, right? After COVID, majority of society migrated to the virtual space, and part of that silent confidence is first thing they hear, right? Is when they call, right? You could, since we talked about the work environment, or getting into your new position, the recruiter is going to call you, and the recruiter hiring manager is going to tell if you are, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Or, hey, how you doing? Yeah, my name is Kate. You see what I'm saying? So that already sets the mood right there for you to get to the next stage, because people could feel energy. They could feel energy through the phone. They could feel energy when you walk into the room. They could feel energy, like energy just shifts, right? Prior to me, in my military time, I was an investigator. And one of the things during our training and being active in the field is every time you go into a crime scene, you always taking something in and something is always coming out. So you want to make sure, that's why we put on the boots and the gloves and all that stuff, right? Because we want to try to keep it as sanitized as possible. That's the same thing about with solid confidence, right? I mean, we could go in. KC mentioned about football, so I'll mess with the with my man Jeff with the Lakers and Kobe. I said that's my guy, but I want to focus on another guy where he had silent confidence and nobody else didn't give him the opportunity. This man was the 7th-round draft pick, okay, number 100 and something pick, and turned out to be the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm a New York Giants fan, but I respect this game, right? He had his own silent confidence. Like, he's like, I'm going to show everybody who discounted me. I'm going to show all the ones that passed over me, and I'm going to go out there and crush them. Yeah, I might not be the fastest. I might not be the strongest. I might not run my 40 in the quickest time, but I'm going to put in this work, and then they're going to see me drop these bombs. You know, I'm going to go get these championship rings on double hands. And then when I ride off in the sunset 20 plus years later, y'all going to respect my game. Because now that's when that silent confidence comes out. And right, what's understood doesn't need to be said. You know, silent confidence, like, yeah, I'm going to be silent. You're going to see my work. And when that work shows your confidence, there's no need to say anything else. Your work is going to talk for you. So I don't know if that means anything to anybody. You know, I just had to plug in my man Jeff right there. I say,
Jeff had to say something.
Oh man, we talking sports now. You got me talking over here. And I love it because sports is so relatable to a lot of these concepts.
Right.
And you forgot to mention that Bill Belichick, who never freaking wore, never took off his little cut off, whatever makeshift sweater that he came off, was a lot behind that. But another great sports coach is the great Phil Jackson. The man never freaking broke a smile all the time. And I know we talk about it, but he had silent confidence, right? He had freaking Kobe and Shaq singing Kumbaya and doing trust falls all the time. And Kobe and Shaq looked at him like, we just want to play basketball. But he taught him that. Even in pressure situations, the man was calm under pressure. Another great coach, Greg Popovich, Air Force guy. We'll love to have him on the Veterans Club one day. Great silent confidence. And he understood the whole team concept. And they all executed based on that whole silent confidence. So just two great examples.
Speaking of which, let's kick it over to our keynote speaker, Charles.
So,
I see you chomping.
So that's one of the things that in the military y'all do so well. You have a kit, you have a uniform, whatever the uniform of the day is. And back in the day, I remember long enough ago, back when you actually had gig lines and you actually polished shoes and you actually polished brass. And all of those were key indicators going in the door, or as you encountered one service member to the next, you knew if that service member was squared away or what kind of sack of stuffings were they, based on the minimal amount of information. And that's where our stereotyping comes from. It is a normal, natural, healthy survival instinct for us to make decisions about the whole based on minimal information. Understand what I just said. We're trying to make observations about the whole and characterize them based on the least amount of possible information that we have to be able to make, because that may ensure our survival, whether we decide to flee or remain frozen, or, oh, okay, we got to fight, so I'm going to take this rascal out, whatever the weakest point I can get to. Or then we move to a higher order decision about, hey, I can make friends with this because all the boxes are checked. I see their insignia. I know their name. I know this kind of cat. Hey, my grandfather was bald too, and he was such a sweet, lovable guy and had a great smile and a wonderful handshake, just like this guy. So I'm checking all the boxes right away. In that warrior mentality, y'all did the same thing with your ribbons, with your tabs, with your insignia, the rank. All of that presupposed that you brought certain elements in your toolkit already, or you didn't have certain tools in your toolkit, and people understood that. On the civilian side, it's not that easy. We don't really have that. Now, we do have some things in the sense of our polos, and maybe we're flying the Bills today or the Cowboys or whatever. True story. I don't mean to chase a rabbit here, but I got to share this with you. I had a student once upon a time, and the cat came in and he was wearing all of one team. And so one week he comes in and he's wearing, even down to the shoes, he's got on Tampa Bay Buccaneers regalia. Okay, so he's got the cap, he's got the glasses holder, and his ear pod. Back then it was the iPod, not earbuds and all that sort of stuff. That shows you how long ago it was. And even down to the tennis shoes were that same color. Now, I got to noticing that because obviously I was queuing in on the nonverbal, and you just don't find that colored tennis shoe anywhere. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty unique. A couple of weeks later, he comes in and he's wearing a White Sox, all that regalia. Okay, so White Sox for baseball, football for the other, but it wasn't baseball season, so I didn't get it. The next week, he comes in and he's got on Boston Red Sox stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, the universe has just turned itself inside out. You can't wear both those sets of colors. And I said, look, dude, I just have to ask. You've got, which team do you go for? That sort of stuff. Trying to draw him out. And he said, I said, what is your dad? Does your dad work for a sports gear company or something other like that? Trying to explain all the regalia. He said, no, I just like to match. That was the kid's thing. He just wanted to match, and he wanted it all to be that. There was no other agenda. But we ascribe agendas to what they're wearing or what they're going to do, because if you know one Army Ranger, you know all Army Rangers, right? If you know one SEAL team member, you know all the SEAL team members. That's wrong. You can't project that. But in the civilian world, we don't have that insignia so much. So that's one of the things that we are doing, your due diligence and researching on these companies. You're looking at the website, you're looking at their social media stuff, looking at what kind of uniform are they in. Are they cool with just polos? Is that their day-to-day work uniform? Are they coat and tie, and what kinds of things with that? Are they all wearing button downs or just a standard collar? Lots of QNs. And of course, I'll defer to Crystal.
Let me get in here, Chuck. Because the reason why, because you mentioned earlier before the show, you're like, oh, I could just go. I was like, the thing is, though, I was going to ask you about misconceptions, because a lot of times we do tend to project things on the people that we don't are not necessarily true. So even from that perspective, what you just shared with the gentleman wearing, like, he's wearing all this Tampa Bay, he's like, yo, you gotta be a fan. I mean, you got the socks on, brother. Like,
absolutely, that's intense. That's a higher order level kind of thing.
And I wanted to keep us on track, because I wanted to go over what are some other misconceptions when it comes to nonverbal communication, because we've covered the basics, and I really want to dive deep on our next segment for the listeners. We're going to be talking about enhancing your professional image through nonverbal communication. But before we go into that, what are some other misconceptions when it comes to nonverbal communication that people might stumble upon?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we have is we've gotten spoiled with television and cinematography and filmography, watching all the film that we do, and now especially with 4K out there, the high definition televisions and stuff like that. In that, my lighting is not ideal, and I obviously don't have a professional makeup artist. I've got this face for radio and voice for print here going on, but at the same time, not having professional lighting and those sorts of things, as Crystal was talking about earlier, watching your video or listening to yourself on recording, we don't sound like them. We don't sound as polished. We don't look as polished or as put together as sometimes they do. And it causes us pause with that. So don't let that intimidate you in terms of you recording yourself and looking at ways to improve, as opposed to identifying errors that you're making. The other misconception, I remember your question now, the other big misconception is that folks just don't understand their own value, and they come to the equation as if they're unworthy in some way or another, that they're going to do you a favor by interacting with you in some particular way or another. They need you as much as you need them. And Dr. Coughlin's here. Hey, Doc, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. But of course, one of the things that we've got to know is that we bring value to that team as well, and don't undermine your own value. The other big misconception, I think, in interviewing situations is so many people allow them to become interrogations as opposed to a conversation, so that you want to switch this to a conversation as quickly as you can. You're not being interrogated. Kingsley can talk to you a lot about interrogations and how those are supposed to run. But the quicker, I would guess, that they got those guys and gals into conversations, they began to get more information than they were asking for in a lot of cases. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Once we engage in conversation, we have a sense of belonging and a sense of rapport or affinity with that person. And so with that, you're opening up more. That aperture, they can see more about who you are and what you value, the word choices that you do. Obviously, LJ, you and I have developed a relationship already because you're calling me Chuck, and there's only one guy in the world that gets away with calling me Chuck other than LJ, and that's Tony Taranto that got me into playing rugby.
It's the LA thing. It's the LA thing. I'll just throw nicknames out there, like my group.
No, that's cool. That's cool. No. It's all right. It's all right. I'm just saying that we know that's how we know we're in relationship with people, is that they get less formal. They move into more proximity or more intimacy, if you will, as in terms of what they're saying, the way they look. I mean, you're looking at me really intensely right now, and I can tell you're absorbing like a sponge anything I'm putting out at this moment. And that's what gets teachers, that's what gets candidates excited during an interview. They feed off of that energy. They see that intensity. They respond to that. And of course, you can do the same thing with children. I hear this about millennials, how nobody understands millennials and they want to talk about generational issues. That's crap. They're people. They're people first. And if you start getting into their people, that you are a peep just like they are a peep, and that y'all share those same tribal needs and characteristics or goals, they're with you all the way. And I attribute that to my success in the classroom in a lot of cases.
Before we move on to our next segment, I wanted to touch on two things. That one thing I've observed during this conversation, because I'm very observant, like you said, and one thing you just mentioned. So number one, earlier in the conversation, if you guys are paying attention, I really want you to get this, okay? Earlier in the conversation, because this show is not very scripted at all. Like when we started, we were all kind of hanging out before the show, and I was like, man, it'd be great to kind of pull this energy into the opening of the show. So I was like, all right, let's just go around the table and have everybody talk. What you guys pictured is that he paid very close attention to what everybody said and made a mental note of what they were saying as they were speaking. And he referred back to those things during the conversation. That is a very advanced, high-level form of communication, because what it subcommunicates beyond anything is that he was paying attention and he wasn't just waiting to speak. So he was like, oh, just like what Crystal said about this, or what Jeff said about that, or so-and-so said about that. These are things, because nowadays, when you go into these interview situations, when I got my position, it was a group interview where they had multiple leaders in the company looking for somebody to hire. And if you go in there with a notebook and say, hey, do you mind if I just take notes? They're going to be like, well, shit, absolutely. And you're just writing down what they're saying. Hey, you mentioned that you guys are having an issue when it comes to leadership and team development. Well, in my background, I've worked with teams in the military where we would have to go execute. And one of the things I would do, like I would do a pre-team brief and make sure that everybody's on page and know exactly what the mission is or whatever the task we got to get done, and just go roll out. And then I can say, just like you said, Charles, you mentioned about this situation you guys are going through, solving the problems, right? Like taking and then sharing stories and becoming a very skilled storyteller and making your stories relevant. A lot of times I was in an interview where a gentleman, unfortunately, he asked me, hey, so what are some of your hobbies? And I told him, like, man, I love to tinker with things. I was trying to get a job as an electrician. So I love taking things apart. I love tinkering things. One of the kids says, one of the young men says, I like to take my dog on long walks on the beach. Okay, great. But that has nothing to do with this position, right? I mean, I love dogs as much as the next guy, but he's looking for certain responses and you're sub-communicating. You're not paying attention to the context of what we're talking about. And then, like you said earlier, I make it a point when I do the shows, I'm totally locked in. And the fact that you said that, I do appreciate you mentioning that, because I want the guests to know that I'm locked into the conversation. I don't have my phone going off. I don't have any distractions. Ella is in the other room. She knows not to bother me while I'm doing the show. Not bother me. I love you, babe. Not to bother me while I'm in the other room. She probably hear me talking. She's probably gonna come here and yell at me now. But she knows I'm locked in. And that all those things when you're looking at to get chose, right? To get chose for whether or not go ahead. I'm sorry.
And you've got another thing. Hold your hand up. Keep doing that. You've got that baton that you keep doing there. You've got a pen, and it says subconsciously to everybody that's watching, you're taking notes. You're writing ideas down. You're not letting good information slide by. So when we're in that interview situation, absolutely have that pen out, have your notepad, be ready to take notes. One of the things that you're seeing in a lot of the interview world is they've moved out of their personal offices to do interviews because of the tells that are given away in the room, right? So that I go into I've got my cup here, right? So I go into a room and I see this anywhere in the room. Obviously, I'm going to throw out a Roll Tide somehow or another. Or if I'm unsure about the ground, I might, since I have a degree from Auburn, I might say War Eagle, just to see what kind of reaction that I'm going to get, depending on who that is. And I'm old, so I don't mind poking the bear every now and then about what's going on. Roll Tide, Joe, always. So, we had those tells, whereas that gave unfair advantages sometimes to different candidates. They've moved into those neutral environments. Now, they're not absolutely neutral in the sense of a neutral color back here, but they might have their team slogan or their company motto, or they might have, safety number one, or however many days without accidents. Those are tells that you want to play off of when you go into that room about, hey, asking questions about, hey, I see you're really safety conscious. Tell me what's going on with those kinds of issues in the facility. And because I've spent a lot of my career being very concerned about safety and taking care of my service members and, the team and so forth and so on. So there are a lot of ways to play off of that, but these are reads. That's the other thing that I would suggest is spending a lot of time with that position announcement, because the position announcement, just think of that in your military experience as a request for work. That's exactly what it is. And they lay out number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Now think about this in the way that you had to interact with your leadership back in the military. They asked for it 1, 2, 3, and you came back in and gave it to that leader 3, 5, 7, 1, 6, 8, 2. Right? What would that leadership do with you right then? Well, they'd make you go back and sort it out and do 1, 2, 3 to match it up, to link it up in the same order that they had it. And so you want to do the same kind of thing as you're building your answers to fairly typical questions. You can pretty much understand what questions they're going to ask even before they do it. And you're going to be able to package your answers addressing the top issues that they have related to that kind of a question as you're discussing.
Can I share something with you that I did? Well, so there's a company I was trying to get hired at, and I went into, so it was an FOB, which is like a private airport, and I went into the airport before, like a couple of weeks before, and I got their pamphlet for the company, and I was looking at the company's history. I was doing some research, and then when I came into the interview, one thing that I don't know if this is actually like a fact or not, but I always come in with my folder. Like if it's a sit down interview, right? I have my own paperwork. That way I'm not walking around with like loose papers. I don't know if that's like again, this is all nonverbal stuff. I want to bring up Elisa too, and I want to bring up a few other people, but let's see if she wants to jump on in here. I'm gonna bring Joe up, because Joe, I gotta hear from you, brother. All right, and then we're gonna open it up for everybody. But I want to hear from them, and then we're gonna go into our next segment. And then what we'll probably do is, because we're kind of getting crunched for time, the final segment we're going to talk about mastering interview skills. We'll touch on this a little bit, but during our after show, I would love to dive really, really deep on interview skills for veterans. Okay, so go ahead, Joe. I want to hear from you, and then we'll hear from Elisa. I want to hear your thoughts so far on this conversation, brother.
Man, I kind of want to go back a little bit. I was taking notes too. The very first thing, I think early in the show, Jeffrey mentioned Marines known for their violence of action. And I've always loved that idea, right? That violence of action. But really all that means is that we're quick to take action. And it's all in our training. Everything we do is quick, make a decision, move forward. we're talking about silent confidence, and I think that actually really builds that. In one of my chats, I had a Michael Van Armen. I want to thank him for commenting. He made a great point about the leaders being predictable, because an unpredictable leader is kind of harsh to follow, and that's kind of like what I meant by predictable and trustworthy. You can do those things. And then also I wanted to move forward, because we were talking about initially nonverbal communication, and I'm a lot of times when I share, I like to share my perspective, like from my own personal journey. And I know right now I'm on this tremendous healing journey, right? This idea how to self-heal. Like, I don't really need all of these outside sources, but I needed more information, so I'm doing all those things. But anyway, so one of the things that we had talked about in nonverbal communication is just how to observe and knowing yourself, right? Like, how to portray this. How do I sit? How am I portraying? What am I non-verbally communicating? But on that same token, as in this journey that I'm on, I think that really helps us kind of empathize with other people. When we know what some of these nonverbal cues tend to be, we know maybe to give someone a little more grace than we normally would. And then we also know how to kind of mirror nonverbal cues to make people feel more comfortable. In our back channel, I was having a hard time 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the show. I had all these things going on and everything. But what I recognized was that this group, and I mean, a lot of us just met online. We haven't done a lot of face-to-face, but we share space quite often, and it feels like a harbor of safety. It feels like that place where you can be yourself. So, and that's what I mean by that. Like, we're able to open up, we're able to talk. And all of this goes back to what Charles mentioned early on, right? We're always in either a fight, flight, or freeze. And again, because I am just a culmination of everything I'm learning, I actually was learning a little bit about that, and how traumas and how being on this healing, like how when we just have certain things, they keep us in those. And when we're in those, we're not able to do this. We're not able to share information because we're in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. We're not relaxed. We're not open for conversation, which comes back to what Charles was saying. When we're doing interviews, and what we're getting to eventually is like how to utilize these silent techniques, these things, to improve ourselves professionally. So the more we understand it, I think the better skill boxes we have, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Whether we're being interviewed or interviewing.
Absolutely.
So again, I just want to thank you.
Well,
one more thing, Charles, and then I want to get your perspective on this one. And it's really important that we know ourselves, right? Because nonverbal is thing, and you had mentioned it, how we wear uniforms. We automatically check boxes. It's subconscious, we automatic. But the more we know ourselves, the more we know what are these automatic stereotypical boxes that I'm already going to check. And are they positive ones and are they negative ones? And when we know that about ourselves, we're able to kind of see what boxes are actually beneficial to be checking and not, and then dig deeper, right?
Absolutely.
So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. I want to piggyback off of one thing you said there, Joe, that's really important in terms of the interviewer and the interviewee. You are interviewing that company in as much as they are interviewing you. Don't ever forget that. Yeah. It's a transactional event. And that's why I say you want to move it to a conversational tone as quickly as you can, rather than being interrogated, because you're not to be interrogated, and you have questions for them as well. Your typical question. Tell me a little bit about yourself as an icebreaker to get the interview started. And as soon as you finish telling them your answer to that, you need to follow that up with your question. So how did you come to work for this company, and what was your journey like to get here? Right away, because now they're having to give stuff back as well. And so you can open that aperture for them as well. And the next thing you know, y'all are talking about something that you both share in your background that you may or may not ever know. For me, it's always scouting.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
For me, it's always scouting that a lot of folks didn't get their Eagle Scout, but they were in scouting or their brother was in scouting and they want to talk about scouting. And we don't really ever talk about the job in a lot of cases. We talk about scouting the whole time. And that's all that they need to know. Because they want to know who I am. They already looked at my resume and they've talked to people in the field that know I know how to do what I'm coming in there to talk about already. Those boxes have been checked. Now it's about who is Charlie and what kind of person is he on the inside and how's he going to take care of my team and my business. And that's what it's all about.
Well said. Well said. I was so excited when Elisa reached out and said she was going to be part of the program today. So I wanted to hear from her. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Elisa, on this topic? And I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Okay, you know what I'm realizing? That because I've been in mental health for 15 years and I'm not allowed to smile. Like, I mean, what I mean is
I get it.
if someone's talking about their depression, anxiety, trauma, stress, suicidality, homicidality, it would be very inappropriate for me to smile. So I've gotten used to like this very, I guess, walking around with this very sad demeanor, and you guys are helping me realize I can't walk around all the time like that. Like almost like I have to switch it up when I switch roles. And now I'm thinking I must have gone into some of my award interviews, internship interviews, job interviews with the same sad demeanor. And I can see now where it may have gotten me in trouble or may have sabotaged a chance, that I could have had. So like a story that I've been meaning to share with you guys for a while was my dream internship was going to be at the VA for, when I was in grad school. And I really thought like they were resistant to interviewing me at first because I was not a second year grad student. I was in a 1-year program, but my advocate at the college, I mean, she advocated for me. I got in and I thought, okay, I'll just convince them in the interview that they should hire me for the internship. But instead, I feel like they may have read certain things off of my behaviors and like the nonverbals. I probably looked too sad. Like, I don't know, maybe not confident. I know I have social anxiety. I know that, I think he had mentioned self-worth, right? And I wanted to touch up on that because if you have low self-worth or you're not sure of yourself, because even still, I can be confident, but I can go into an interview with the social anxiety. And I'll tell you guys what that sounds like in your mind. It sounds like, am I going to say the wrong thing? And then you do say the wrong thing. Or I'm confident, I know I can do this, but are they going to see that? And then they won't see that because you're so scared of it. So you'll like sabotage yourself in the process of it. So the concern that they told me was that I was going to over-identify with the veterans if I were to intern with them because they knew my experience after I told them. And I feel like that was both a correct thing, but also wrong at the same time. So like in the end, I did not get it. But I can't help but wonder, like, if I had smiled more even, or just been more confident, or even like talked about my experiences, not looking so sad, would it have changed their mind? Would they have thought, oh, she won't over-identify, she can compartmentalize? So maybe my nonverbals like did sabotage that, as well as going up for sharp troop. I never got that. I told them not to put me up for that when I was in the military because I just fumble on things like that. But I got better. I got better in my more recent job interviews because I forced like more smiley type of presentation, and that seems to work for people better.
Right. So one of the things that you're talking to there, Elisa, that's absolutely critical is our general communication anxiety. I face this with my public speaking students all the time. And obviously with interviewing situations, we know we are on the platform, so to speak. We are going to be judged. We're going to be evaluated. So there's nothing that is more crucial conversation than that, or when we're standing up to brief for the first time or every time. As far as that goes. So we know we're being evaluated. With that in mind, then, of course, that's where our due diligence comes to bear, and military members understand this better than anybody else. The way you get better is rehearse, 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 review, rehearse, 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 review, rehearse, 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 review, and you just keep doing that. So to the extent that you're concerned about any of these things, and you should be, because it is important, it is about your next career, it is about your ability to take care of your family, take care of your household, take care of yourself. Those are important factors. That's where you build a team around yourself. You made yourself a professional service member by surrounding yourself with SMEs relative to whatever the different fields are that allowed you to play to your strengths and allowed you to maximize and leverage the strengths of those others. So I'm known for saying that transition is a team sport. However, my friend Thompson out there with Mission Transition, he's got it in print before I ever did. But if you go back way back, about 5 or 7, 8 years, you might find it there in my LinkedIn discussion saying transition is a team sport. Surround yourself with a team. Build your team and keep networking that team out, and have those mock interviews. Sit down with some folks. I'm pretty sure LJ and them will share my contact information, my LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to set up mock interviews with you. And that's what makes all the difference. And of course, Charlie's a great guy, but I'm not everybody's cup of tea. You need other people. You need a Kingsley, you need a Crystalor, and you need some HR directors. And I'll link you up with HR directors that need to do this kind of stuff. Number one, they're more than happy to cherry pick talent off of any tree that they can find good fruit on. You know what I'm saying? But on top of that, they have to do this as part of their community service anyway. And I've met very few HR folks that aren't veteran friendly. Now, I want to make a very clear distinction here. Being a veteran-friendly company is a wonderful thing, but that does not make them veteran-ready. Let me say that again. Being a veteran-friendly company is a great thing, right, Joe? But being veteran-ready ain't the same deal. It's a different hat. It's a different uniform. It's a different repertoire of behaviors and policies and procedures. And there's some great cats in this room that will be more than happy to help you discern that and to evaluate that. But you're going to find a lot of companies are veteran friendly, but that does not make them veteran ready. Go, Joe.
No, Charles, you're absolutely right, Charles. I actually, a few years back, a friend of mine works for a major shipping company. I'm talking major shipping company, very veteran friendly. But he says that he was sharing with me that their turnover rate is huge. It's like veteran, they try to bring as many as they can, and they lose almost 90% of veterans are out in a very short amount of time. And he's like, they really do try. He's like, but it's just they're not necessarily ready. Friendly.
So let's you and I talk offline, and maybe I go help them build a program to do that. More than happy to do that. More than happy to do that.
And as we're kind of winding down, because we are at the top of the hour, and I'm excited about the after show. I hope that everybody that's here right now can join us for the after show. If you're interested and you can't find the link, or you need some guidance, just send me a message on LinkedIn if you're live here, and I will send you the link to join us on the after show. That has been the most effective way in the past to get people to the after show. So if you are interested, I see Mike, John, we got Emilio in the chat here. We got Omar, we got Dr. Jean, and then we've got Kevin. All you guys, if you guys want to join us after shows, please reach out to me, because during that time, we're going to dive deep on mastering interview skills, specifically for veterans, right? Nonverbals, things like that. Because one of the things that I wanted to share, actually, I'm going to wait because I wanted to hear from Cynthia, because she's been very, very patient waiting. And I know she has a lot she wanted to share before we move on. But I did have as Elisa was speaking, it was just so powerful. And I had a few comments personally that I want to share with her, but I'd like to hear from Cynthia before we do that.
I think Elisa just nailed it. I mean, we go through our military portion, and we
Oh, Cynthia, you're breaking up.
Small.
Oh, she's breaking up. Let me see. I'm gonna see here. We're gonna hear from Cynthia in the after show because she was breaking up really, really bad. But okay, so you did nail it. She's right. And one of the things I thought was very interesting that Charles said that was very like right on point is we go into these situations and we haven't prepared, and then we feel uncomfortable, or it's just a blind spot. I think it's a complete blind spot. You're unaware of what you're sub communicating. When I started doing the podcast, when everybody asked me like, how do you start the show? First thing I said is my first 10 episodes weren't even published, right? Like I literally would sit and I recorded myself interviewing Ella. I recorded myself interviewing my friend. I recorded myself interviewing just random people. And then I got feedback from those individuals so that I, like you said, I went back, I listened to it. What was my pacing like? Was my storytelling on point? Was I ranting like I'm doing right now? Like where were the issues that I need to get better at? Because here's the thing, right? In a podcast, ranting is a skill set. If you can rant on a topic, that's actually like not a bad thing. Joe, the king of rants, is here, and I love him. Like I've been begging him to start his own show because if I give him half a second, he's gonna be like, "Hey, LJ, so I know we're talking about interviews, but let's talk about the entire piece of it. The peace and the tranquility." And I'm like, "Damn it, Joe, you got me again. You got me again."
Actually, what I was gonna say was the reason sometimes I go so long is as I speak, I hear exactly what Alyssa is describing in my head. You're gonna say the wrong thing, and I have like a million of these anxiety things just spinning around, and I'm just trying to stay on point, right? And it's so difficult. So the share she said was so on point with that about doing that. And then I want to talk about it in the after party, but I was actually going to throw love at Alyssa.
Go ahead. No, man.
Well, because also I'm just curious, how many of you, when we're talking, or you got that, we recognize it, and then I think that makes us better. Anyway, that's why.
Well, this portion of the conversation, I like that we're having this, and man, at least we can get transition to what we want to talk about. Is like as a vet, I had a conversation earlier about moral injury, right? And how sometimes the things that we did as veterans affect the decisions that we make now. Or like when people find out, like you, like, well, what if they find out who I really am? Like what if I tell this story and they find out who I really am and then they don't want to hire me? But is that who I really am? Like, because that was what I did when I was ordered. Like those were orders, and those were the things that I did when I was on orders. And there's like a dichotomy in there where you're just trying to figure it out. And then you just got out the military, you're sitting in an interview, you're LJ, but you still feel like Sergeant Haywood, and you're trying to figure it out, and you're wearing both of these hats at the same time. And then maybe I'm too military, maybe I'm too this, maybe I'm too that. Like for me with the podcast, this is what goes through my head sometimes. Maybe I sound too black, maybe I sound too professional. And Kingsley's laughing because he knows what I'm talking about, right? Like if I'm too much LJ, they'd be like, "Oh, this guy's too much of this, too much of that." And those things, like it becomes distracting, and you lose presence, and you're not locked in to the conversation. And these are things that I still struggle with. I think I'm getting better at. I think we're all struggling with it. And I'm so thankful that you brought this to the forefront, Elisa. Thank you so much.
Hey, I know you brought this up. We have 2 minutes, right? So you're talking about this moral injury. I've had this kind of theory, right? Like war initially started, and we would fight, and we'd have to be really close quartered. So you'd have to see your enemy, and there was a lot of moral injury, I think, then. And war was harder to actually do. It was really a last resort now, right? Because you're looking at this guy, 3 to 5 feet. And then if you look at, if you read the book on killing, he goes into it about how the weapons were more accurate compared to what their fire was during the Civil War and those muskets. And they were like 15 yards from each other, and it was common for people to just miss the entire front row, right? But that was a subconscious thing. So we figured out how to out-train that, and we shoot from distances, right? We shoot at targets, it becomes muscle memory. But when we actually go back to war, we end up really close and we see our enemy, and there's the moral dilemma. Regardless of how well we're trained and how efficient we are, I think taking life is not, whether it's on orders, not on orders, unless you're, wired wrong, it's going to affect you. I don't care who says it doesn't, it's going to affect you. So.
Thanks, Joe. And so let's go around again. And I wanted us to focus on this last segment on just sharing some final thoughts and maybe some resources as we conclude this portion of our conversation, because we're going to continue this conversation in the after show. So we'll go with Jeff, and I'm going to save the final thought for our guest. But I'll start with Jeff, Elisa, Kingsley, and then Crystal Lord. And then I think Cynthia's back with us, so I will let her try again with the I know she has some audio issues. So go ahead, Jeff, brother.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate, Charles. I really want to thank you for really coming along, because one of our challenges here, as you know, is there's this veteran civilian divide, right? And what we want to do is we want to close that gap. So I'm so thankful for LJ bringing you on the show. And to summarize today, I think this is one of the most powerful conversations that we've had, because we talked about how you look at things in your head, how you communicate those things. And to Kingsley's point, if you just see yourself as this person who served the country, and then you get out, and then now you're trying to figure out, what is my purpose? What is my mission? Who am I? Because we go through that. I think this is very powerful, because it's important for veterans to understand that you have value. You've led tons of people. You've been in charge of X amount of dollars, millions, billions, all that responsibility. So I want you guys to understand that what Charles and everyone here is talking about is you are worthy. You bring value. You serve the country. You've started Fortune 500 companies. You're political leaders. You're community leaders. And if any of you want to get a hold of anyone, myself included, please reach out, because you are worthy. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Elisa, I'd like to hear from you, your final thoughts, and then any resources you would like to share, especially with your background in mental health. I think it would be really, really powerful. Thank you.
Well, I mean, as far as resources, there's a lot more of us behavioral health consultants embedded in primary care, which I'm happy about, because even if mental health access is hard, which it has been harder since the pandemic, there's more of us social workers popping up in other departments. So if you feel like you need mental health, always look for it, always ask around. And thank you guys for sharing. Everyone gave me a lot to think about, and I'm grateful for the topic. I'm really glad that he touched up on value, confidence, self-worth, the mental stuff, because it's really important, and that's where it starts. So thanks, everyone, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we got, here he is, Mr. Kingsley. Brother, how you doing? How you feeling?
Man,
how you feeling, New York?
Look, I'm almost, my notepad, I got about like 5 or 6 more pages. So I done wrote so much stuff down, so I got to go back and review it. But I just want to say to Charles that, like, you hit a lot of amazing points. And the thing that I want, like you said, companies, they're military friendly, but they're not military ready. But individuals like you, Charles, you have been in the military environment, not serving, but you're still part of it. But you've seen an issue that needed to be fixed, a solution. Like, okay, I'm going to be this solution for companies to show you could be military friendly. Let me show you how to be military ready, right? Because when we come out, like, could we all start as civilians, right? I mean, non-veterans, right? Everybody that's on this podcast, everybody started as a non-veteran. The moment that we became a veteran is when we served and we finished serving, right? So to me, it's like I was plucked out of the non-veteran community. I did 21 years in the Air Force. So for those 21 years, I was engulfed in the military environment, which turned me into a veteran. So now I'm coming back as a veteran, but I'm trying to remember what I did. You know, I was trying to revisit 1997. You see what I'm saying? I came out in 2018. And the things wasn't lining up, right? Because I was trying to go back to where I was a non-veteran, and it didn't work.
No.
It didn't work for me. So I had to find people that already went through that journey. Like, man, how did you become? Because you have to become military veteran friendly yourself. Like me as a veteran, I have to become veteran friendly and veteran ready, right? For the non-veteran community, for the non-veteran environment. Because just like what Charles said, like it's a two-way street. It's a conversation. The interviewers, the hiring managers, they want to know us just like we want to know them. But we have to do our research just as they trust me. They have done their research on us. They looked at our LinkedIn. They reviewed our resume. They contacted us on the phone. They heard our voice contact. They said, okay, is this person friendly or not? Okay, let's bring them in. Let's bring her in and come to the next stage. Now, when you go in there, hey, you have an interview, blah, blah, blah. So now it's your turn as the veteran. So now you have to let this company know I am friendly. I am ready. Let me come to your team so we could solve this problem. Let's solve it because companies want solutions. Absolutely. And as a veteran, we have to come with that solution so it could be more veteran friendly. And then we are the veteran ready part of it, right? So now we bring our information, we bring our dash, you know what I'm saying? Because we are like, hey, I'm coming to make my dash count. Okay, let's go. I want to be part of the solution. Absolutely. And that's where you have that conversation back and forth, because just like Charlie said, like they'll forget about it. Because don't forget, they have a list they have to go off and check, right? Okay, did you ask this? Did you ask this? But when you put this list and you just go like this, and y'all sitting, y'all have the conversation, you looking at time, now you running into the other interview, right? So they don't even want to stop talking to you. Stop talking, right? They say, hey, you know what? Hey, you know what? I'm gonna give you a call later. Let's go out for a coffee. Let's go out, you know, for thing. And the next thing you know, before you even get down to the bottom floor to walk to your car, you getting a phone call from the like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and move forward with this, or we don't want to interview nobody else. You're the individual we want. Now let's make it happen. That's when the negotiated phase and all that stuff come to play after that. But I hope that resonate with everybody in here. Appreciate it for letting me share. I'm gonna get and fade to the background.
Chris the Lord.
Okay, hello, Kingsley. You know, you let me go first last time. You're a tough act to follow. All right, so I'd be remiss to say that as a lifestyle and fitness and emotional intelligence coach, your presence and your confidence comes from taking care of the only body, mind, heart, and soul that you have, and that's you, right? So fuel it properly. Movement is your medicine. Move your body, all right? You will be more confident. Fuel it with the proper nutrition, proper hydration, proper sleep, proper rest and recovery, and you will be more present and more confident in your body. I know as veterans, a lot of times they force us in the military to stay fit to fight and run and do push-ups and sit-ups and burpees and all those things. That's the last thing you want to do when you separate. But I'm telling you, that's the best thing you can possibly do is move your body. It will change your mind. So my resource that I'd love to share for those of you out there that are maybe feeling a little bit lost in your transition and you want to recenter in your values and your movement and your healthy habits and in a supportive community, I have a free 5-day Courageous Confidence course. So just send me a message. I'd love to get you the resource. It's an amazing course. You can binge watch it. It's better than Saturday morning cartoon. So I'd love to support you. Thank you so much, Charlie, for being here and pouring into us. And I can't wait to see what happens next. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. And I was going to go to Joe, but I know Cynthia, she's been having some technical difficulties. I see she's got it all lined up and gorgeous. So you're up next, Cynthia, and then we'll go to Joe, and then we'll let our guests wrap it up. And then I look forward to hearing from everybody during our after show.
I think I'll pass and just and try to keep things going smooth.
No, you're good. Let's hear from you. No, go ahead, please.
Oh, internet has been trying, but I dropped some of my thoughts into the comments. I'm Roaming Raven RV over there, and that's my RV channel. But keep moving. That is so wonderful, Crystal. It's really important because as I travel, I see a lot of vets, and some of them are homeless, some of them are not, but the majority my age aren't moving well. No. I want to say, oh, let's go on a hike. Honey, I'm going to be lucky if I can get them, 50 feet away from their RV. And again, rolling back the shoulders and having that posture, they don't have it. It's like they have been whooped. And I really would like to see those people get the shift in their mentality so that they can move forward and live the rest of their life, however long or short it may be, having the confidence and the qualities that we once had. And thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you for sharing. I'm so happy that you shared. Cynthia, we have a great relationship because she always like, oh, I hate to put you on blast, sis, but she'll hit me up. You guys don't need me on the show this week, do you? You don't need me. I'm like, no, we need you. You are a valued member of this project and this team, and actually, I will tell her this too. When I was doing the intro video, the outro video, one thing she said, we need to have veterans on that video that have little, what would you say, Cynthia, a little gray in their hair, because I don't have any hair, so I don't know what kind of color hair we're supposed to have in the video.
We need to have that gray.
All right, Joe, you're up, man, and take your time. Don't rush.
I just want to leave it with something that Charles really, it's just stuck in my head. It's about knowing the boxes that you check. And I mean by both ways, right? What boxes are you having other people check by watching you, and what boxes do you check when you look at other people, right? You kind of be aware of those things about knowing yourself. That's all I wanted to close out with, and I'm grateful for all you guys. Thank you.
No, I'm grateful for you reaching out and joining us today, man. I really, really am. And then we saved our guest for last. So Charles, I wanted to before you say anything, I really wanted to thank you for being such a powerful speaker for our veteran community and supporting the community and just the community and as a whole, right? Because we are all part of a community, right? Like the United States and this world. So I think sometimes we tend to forget that, like, a lot of things I'm seeing, the rhetoric I'm seeing outside of this is very divisive. And I've noticed, if you look at this, the number of panels people we've had on here, different people from different walks of life, different ethnicities, people don't believe the same things, all kinds of stuff. And that's the main thing, is just being able to just hear different perspectives and just learning from each other and growing. And I can't thank you enough for being part of this project, man. So yes, floor is yours, brother. Thank you for being so patient.
Well, it's totally my honor and a total privilege to be accepted into the brother and sisterhood, if you will. I don't take that lightly at all. It's a big deal. Some basic statistics I'd share with you is that only 7% of our nation serve. And consequently, the only thing the rest of that 93% know about the military and what y'all do and the sacrifices engaged in on a day-to-day basis, they only get that out of movies and films and books. And so they really don't have a way to relate to you except by your stories. So as you are out there, you are the number one recruiting tool, if you will, for the United States military and protecting our nation. And that's not a small weight to put on your shoulders. But my point is to say that a lot of folks love you folks, but they don't necessarily understand you because they've not walked in your shoes and they've not walked that trail. But with that, it doesn't mean that they don't care about you and they don't want to help. It's just a matter of being able to be relatable and helping them extend that hand and that gesture and accepting it when they do. So with that in mind, there's a bunch of us out here that do want to welcome you back. I do recall a veteran that I worked with many years ago, and he said he returned from Vietnam in 1973, but he didn't guess that he'd actually come home psychologically until about 1999. That's a very powerful image to have in your head for that long, and it does dictate a lot of the ways that you interact with surroundings. In the same way that Kingsley had talked about positive attitude, Laura had talked about those values that you bring to the equation. Be sure that you're focused on that you are more than the composite of your parts, and you're writing your future right now. The military didn't give you a lot of choices, but you get to choose right now. You get to navigate the trail that you're on, or hey, you want to take a different trail? That's great. Just get your team together. And so transition is a team sport. You won't be just transitioning out of the military. You have a lot of other transitions. My wife and I right now, we're going through transition into empty nesting. And it's not been easy because, when I had the kids around, they deflected a lot of energy from her. But now I'm the sole target. So I get a lot of strikes. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just a different operating environment. And so with that in mind, get your team together, surround yourself with subject matter experts, look at ways to pool your resources and get the lessons learned from somebody else that's already been down the trail just a little bit further than you have. You knew how to do this in the military, do this in this trail as well, whichever trail you're on. And these look like some pretty good SMEs around the table here, as far as I'm concerned. And each of them have their own preferences, their cup of tea, if you will, for different areas, different needs, different requirements. Let me be your employment piece. Let me be the communication efforts. I'm glad to do that because that's where my strength lies, and I always am more comfortable playing in my strengths. But I'm okay getting uncomfortable too. So I can cry with the best of you. I'll just listen if that's all you need me to do. I can do that too. So I'm here for you, as well as bringing my network to as a resource and as a pool of talent. And let's engage and lock arms and moving forward.
All right. So you heard it from the man himself. If you want to reach out, flood his inbox. I'm joking. Today's episode, we covered a lot of great information. We got you ready for the power of silent confidence with our distinguished guest, Charles Living, who is an expert in resume development, networking, and professional development. He proved it in this conversation that we had here today. Today, you learned how to unlock nonverbal communication skills to enhance your professional image. We talked about some techniques to master as it relates to nonverbal cues. We also talked about how it affects us as veterans, right? In our experience. If you'd like to continue this conversation, we encourage you to join us in the after show. And like I said before, if you're still listening to us, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. You could have spent your Saturday anywhere, but you decided to spend it here on the Veterans Club podcast. We will see you in the after show. Have a blessed rest of your day. If you don't join us next week. We have I'm so excited. I had a call yesterday with some incredible guests, and we got some incredible shows coming up for you throughout the next few weeks. And actually, we're booked up until the beginning of October. I'm sorry. So we are booked for like the next 2 months with guests. So we're rocking and rolling. We're trying to provide value for you. This should be a resource for you to come in. Communion, like Kingsley always says, it should feel like it's therapy. And so have a great rest of your day. I appreciate everybody here. I want to thank Jess, Elisa, Kingsley. We got Chuck. One of two. And then we got Chris, the Lord, Joe, and Cynthia. You guys rocked it today. Thank you so much. I will see you guys later, and bye.